Greetings and salutations to Denizens, to design Wolfphototech, and here we go with a fun little video of my thoughts, feelings, and a fair overview plus preliminary review at the end of this book, of this video. You see here I have the physical copy of Mordenkainan Presents Monsters of the Multiverse. Right off the bat, that's definitely Wizards of the Coast definitely wanting to get in on the whole multiverse, metaverse, mini-verses, universes terminology. I'm just like throwing it out there. That's it. That's all. Now, I made jokes in various comments in various other videos that this book is pretty much 99% reprints. And as far as races are concerned, and 99% and reprints, 100% reprints for races and 99% in reprints for monsters. That is technically incorrect. However, there's various caveats tied to that. This book is 288 pages. I don't know why I say 100. 288 pages. It is actually very brisk in its contents, let's just say. In this book is basically a composite of two other books. For everyone's knowledge, they're mostly a composite. It's mostly a mix of these two books, minus the deep lore and deeper mechanics, plus a few little more races and monsters from various other things that got like used once or twice or might be interested thrown in. In those two books, when you get to each race, there's usually 2 or 3 pages. Say like this is the table of contents. It's a completely full page of contents. There's a little artwork down there. This is a really tiny section right here. This is a continuation of the table of contents. This is a little description of how the book is set up. It gives you a quick list of what races are in this book here, and the basic format of age, size, rate, life expectancy. You know that. Now, here we go with a fun little piece here. This is actually a great example of how this book operates. First and foremost, on this page right here, you got the Arachnomancer, and then over here you have the Aasimar. And now, if you flip to the next page, it goes to Bugbear. There's a really big detail about this. You have to like flip to this. See if I can find it. That's actually the harder book to find that shit in. The older books are really packed full of a lot of content, which can really bog you down in some places, but they're actually exceedingly good lore books. Volo's Guide to Monsters has pages upon pages of what to expect when you're in a lithid layer and etc, etc, etc. But hunting down for Mr. Aasimar, this is the Aasimar in Volo's Guide. You have one page of character lore, where they come from, how they relate to the universe and the worlds. You have the basic core characteristics up here, and then you have the Protector Aasimar, the Scourge Aasimar, and the Fallen Aasimar over here. So this entire page is literally the core variant plus 3 sub-variants or sub-races of Aasimar, or types, because Aasimar can become one or the other depending on where they are in their relationship to the higher powers in the universe. And then it actually explains that right down here in this bottom right here. And this is Volo's guide. I have to remind people that. And then you have Furbolg, which is 2 pages in itself. So you have a lot of detail explaining their culture, etc., 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 etc. All their characteristics, like ability score, age, alignment relationship, size, speed, all their abilities is very well detailed out in this book, as well as some other historical details about Furbolgs and their origin. Now, getting back to this book, as I was getting at, remember that there was the core type of Aasimar, and then there's 3 sub-variants of Aasimar. However, the way they redid this is that instead of having all 3 subdivided, you literally have the core, and then you have a choose one of 3 options, and it's just a little section for each of the options. So they got rid of the 3 variants. So you got each race as 1 page. I do like that they chose to put new artwork in here. However, as I'm going to point out, there is actually updates in some of the characteristics for some of the races, and some of the other races not so much. Changelings are more Feywild now. Everything has become more Feywild. They just added more Feywild to everything. Yet again, here's the Ladrin. This was actually 4 pages in one of the books, but it's now condensed down to 1. Here's the Furbolg, which is just 1 page now. Instead of having 2 pages, you have just barely 1 page of information. You got the Fairy, which is one of my favorites. Genasi is actually one of this rare occasion where you actually have 2 pages for a race, and you have a lot of the same stuff. I'm gonna get to my friends, the Hobgoblins. Here's the Hobgoblin right here. Now this Hobgoblin, it's just referred to as a Hobgoblin, is actually the Feywild Hobgoblin retooled. There is no other variant of Hobgoblin in here. It's just the Feywild one. The characteristics are creature type, you are a humanoid. You're also considered a goblinoid for any prerequisites or effects that require you to be a goblinoid. Alrighty. Size, medium. Speed, your walking speed is 30 feet. Dark vision, you can see in dim light within 60 feet of you as if you were bright light, and in darkness as if it were dim light. You discern colors in that darkness only as shades of gray. That's an important reminder on mechanics on perception and details. You don't have perfect vision in darkness. You have a diminished level of vision, and it's dim light, and you have disadvantage on your proficiency on your perception rolls, and your passive perception is diminished by 5 points. But as we continue on, we get into Fey ancestry. You have advantage on saving throws you make to avoid or end the charmed condition on yourself. They got Fey gift. You can use this trait to take the help action as a bonus action, and you can do so a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. You regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Starting at 3rd level, choose one of the options below each time you take the help action with this trait. And then you have Hospitality, Passage, and Spite. And then you have a 4th one over here called Fortune from the Many. And the world lore for hobgoblins is more focused on them being from the Feywild. And that is actually a general shift with all the races. Kobolds used to have pack tactics and superior dark vision plus sunlight sensitivity. Instead, now they have Draconic Cry and Kobold Legacy, which ties into craftiness, defiance, and Draconic Sorcery as your 3 options for that. Yet again, it's not just a simple entire reprint of each race. They reworked several of the races, so they have new traits, and they redefined the lore of the race to be more specific to another plane or something else. So, yeah. Nice thing I liked is they included artwork for all the races. Got a new orc, which actually looks more Oni in origin. And this continues the whole trend. Some races, like the Tabaxi, which is one of my favorites, no changes at all. Completely none. Some races, they reworked half the abilities, like the Hobgoblin. And then you have the Bestiary section, which is almost entirely reprints of old creatures, with the exception of a few new creatures and a few new variants in here. Everything is simplified down. They pretty much try to keep to having artwork for every creature, which I actually approve of. I wish they did that in the original books, though. And this is actually one of the few examples of having more than one page for each creature. Pretty much almost all these creatures are from the previous 2 books, and there's only like a few new ones here and there. Keep in mind, if you haven't noticed, we just went past the Annis Hag and the Amazu. And if we keep on going, we go through Archdruid, Archer, Eminent, Astral Dreadnought, Bebu, Bell, Belanoth, Bendelhob, Baphomet, Bard, the Guest, Barbalian, and Burhag. In the original books, in the original 3 monster books for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, the Monster Manual, Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, Volo's Guide to Monsters, they would organize, say, like all the hags into one area, all the demons into another, all the dragons into another section, etc., etc., etc. In this book, it's all alphabetical. You got Blackguard. I don't remember Blackguard in the previous books. As I said, there is actually some new monsters in here. I just happen to not remember Blackguard. Deep Roth, which is a variant of cattle. You got a stench cow, an ox, cave fisher. You got a champion here. You got some generic warriors or foe type characters that are based on the core classes. And then you have just the classic monsters in this book as well. As I said, this is Cloud Giant's Smiling One. And then this is actually a weird situation where they actually do group some of them, where they have the clockworks. They have a whole page on basic clockwork information. Bronze Scout, and then they have all the clockworks in short little paragraphs here. And then they have all the stats for a few pages. For 2. So that's just one of those weird spots. They got the 2 Darklings next to each other. Of course, they would be in the same they would be alphabetically next to each other. You got the Deathlocks. Deathlock Mastermind, Deathlock White, Deep Sky Scion, Demogorgon. Here's the Darrow section, or Darrows, because obviously all the Darrows would be next to each other. A Devourer, a Deep Goleth, a Dear Goleth, or Goloth. And then you have dinosaurs. Like, this is actually another one of those weird spots where they stopped doing the alphabetical thing, and they just stick all the stuff like dinosaurs, brontosaurus, Deinonychus, Hadrosaurus, Quetzalcoatlus, Stegosaurus, all right next to each other. If you are going to go entirely alphabetical, stay alphabetical. If you're going to create subsections, like all your demons in one section, all your devils in another, all your dragons in another, all your elves in another section, if you're going to go that route, you go that route entirely. In fact, it might actually make sense if you did that and then you had just the miscellaneous alphabeticals. But when you go by default alphabetical, and then all of a sudden, you just do a cluster of dinosaurs. And I do love dinosaurs. I wish there was more dinosaurs. That would be nice. But don't switch from a core alphabetical system to a grouping system randomly in the middle of an alphabetical. This is actually one of the few entirely new monsters. A Dolphin Delighter. It's actually kind of neat. It's actually a good one. Chaotic Good. And then here's the example of typically chaotic good. And regular dolphins are medium beast unaligned. Drow Arachnomancer. New artwork. I think I've come across Arachnomancers before in some books, but I do not recall them being in specifically Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes and Volo's Guide to Monsters. So, you got just all the drow next to each other because everyone starts with drow, and then you got Drugar that are hanging out because all the Drugar foes are starting with Drugar. So, as I said, it's mostly like one monster to a page, with the exception of a few exceptions tossed here and there, and then they have this weird out of the nowhere. Occasionally they'll clump a bunch of them together for no reason. Then you have the Mind Flayers and Flayers. The Elder Brain, which incidentally gets 2 pages. Which, weirdly enough, is a piece of artwork from one of the previous books. I have no clue why they decided to do that. And the Elder Brain stats are right here. This is just completely nonsensical. They put Elder Brain stats here. They have the general information for the Elder Brain here. And they just put this artwork here. They could literally got rid of this artwork entirely and put the Elder Brain stats on the back side on this side. The whole point of this book is supposedly to make it more simple for newer dungeon masters just to run Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. And at various points, Wizards of the Coast kind of fudges that. Like, oops, we completely forgot why we were doing it this way. Here's a random cluster of creatures, and here's a example of us being morons and putting a map of a lair, Mind Flayer colony map on a page that would be really nice to have the Elder Brain stats. And it's right next to the Elder Brain in general information. For Pete's sake. And then you have the Elemental Denizens, the Fire Giant Dreadnought, Fire Newts, and it just keeps going. You got a Flamed, Furbolg, a Frogmoth, a Frost Giant Everlasting one, a Frost Salamander, a Gazor, a Greyon, a Giant Stutter, Greyon's stats are on the back side of the next page. A little bit of better planning would have came off a lot better if they would have improved the book's usability with just a little bit of better editing in some spots. You got the various Gith Yankee, and then you got the Gith Zerai hanging out, and then you got the Gnolls. So you have Flamed way over there, and you have Gnolls over here. They split the Flamed from the Gnolls area, but they didn't do that with the dinosaurs. And it just keeps going. And I'm just like, it's pretty much standard that it's like most monsters are 1 page. Some you'll get 2. Very few get 3 pages. But then you get, when it comes to the 3-page ones, they have like this sudden brain circuit failure. And trust me, I'm an expert in brain failing randomly out of nowhere part. I suffer from it all the time. But they could really easily fix a lot of this with some adjustments. So you get actually a nice selection of Star Spawn. Some new artwork with the Star Spawn. And I think some of the Star Spawn might actually be new. Get some giants, a stone giant, a storm giant. Then you get a little section on a storm giant Quinsit's layer on the backside, which is kind of okay. It would have been better if this was over here and that was the layer information was on this page. Yet again, this is one of those situations where Wizards of the Coast, one of the reasons why they made this book was to literally make it easier for new dungeon masters to use it, and then they screw something up by sticking it on a back page or needlessly just dropping it in an awkward spot or breaking the basic pattern that they established. Here's another weird one. Remember when I was talking about just randomly going into just like, you now have a group in a book that is almost entirely alphabetical? You got wizards. You got apprentice wizard, abjurer wizard, conjurer wizard, diviner wizard. So they have all the other classes spread out through the entire book, and then all of a sudden, they go and stick all the wizards together on a set of pages. And yet again, I do say that it's really nice that they have some really nice artwork to at least go with almost all of the wizards. Like Evoker, Illusionist, Necromancer. Ooh, really nice collection on that. A Transmutor. And then they go back to doing their normal thing for the book, where it's entirely alphabetical. Demons next to monstrosities, next to aberrations, next to this, next to that. And then they got the Yuanti, which obviously all Yuanti will be next to each other because it's Yuanti blah blah blah. And then they have, out of nowhere, for no reason, they have a Yuanti Temple in the book. This is actually out of like Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, if I remember correctly, in the Yuanti culture section. You got Zartan and Zariel. The artwork from Descent into Avernus, brain fart. And then you got Zuktmoy. Zuktmoy's stats on the back side. So you have a picture of Zariel and her basic information on here, this page, and then on the back side is her stat block, and you got Zuktmoy again with her basic lore information on one front side page, and then her stat block on the back side of another. Yet again, just like adding an extra monster into the book. I mean, like simply adding an extra monster here and there would actually shift this. If you just add one monster, you could shift all these, so many of these, so that you have Zuktmoy on one side, her lore on one side, and her stat block on the other. But that's Wizards of the Coast. This book has a nice little section of charts on the backside. CRs, where would you find something, da 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 da. But anyways, it's an extra book that would actually be quite useful when using the other books at the table. So you can have one page open to one monster, and you have the other book open to another monster. So that way you don't have to like bookmark through and flip quickly. But anyways, this book, as their intended goal was to make it simpler to use, they fudge it in so many little areas, minor ways, but it's just like, if your intended goal was to make it easier, you simply overlooked very simple adjustments that would make it so much easier to use the book. And then you're also then weirdly inconsistent, like randomly clumping a bunch of different monsters together that have different starting letters in their name, when the entire book is basically all alphabetized. It's just one of those weird quirks. A good portion, about a quarter of the races in this book, have updated abilities. So for people who absolutely have to have all the options to play, this book turns into a situation where Wizards of the Coast reprints a lot of stuff in this book, and a lot of it is stripped down inferior version of the other two books, but they add just enough stuff to coax people into buying the book. So, if you literally just started Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and you're a player, just a player, and you want more race options, this is actually a value savings of a book. You go and buy this book simply because it would save you a bunch of money, because you have about 30 races in this book that you can play as, and that gets you going like that. As a dungeon master, if you just started, you buy the monster manual and you buy this, and you have a really nice large bestiary of monsters. That is a value savings right there. However, if you want a superior quality to your monsters as a dungeon master, and you're not too concerned about spending extra money, you buy these two books. Because these two books have all the monsters in this book, plus pretty much most of the races. But these two books have so much more monster lore that you could, as a dungeon master, build entire encounters around this book, around these two books, just by reading the lore and figuring out, oh, this is how gnolls operate in combat. This is how their culture originated. It's how they interact with other races when not specifically doing XYZ or such and so forth. And same thing with the demons, and same thing with devils and dragons, and more lore on dwarves, and more lore on this, and more lore on the giants, explaining their cultures and stuff like that. So these two books are very lore deep books that are really good adventure food fodder to get your brain coming up with, like, oh goodness, I could take this diagram they include for kobolds in here of their warrens. There's actually a nice little kobold warren map that details where they like to orient and all their stuff, types of traps they use, stuff like that, at their culture, taboos, so forth. And that can get you building out really fun adventures for your players. This book is just like a big bag of creatures that you could just like dump into various situations, but it doesn't give you very much information on the creatures as to where they are in relationship with the world and other species. It just gives you just enough to get going. So this book, interestingly, might also be valuable if you are an experienced game master or dungeon master that has been gaming since like 1st edition, 2nd edition, 3rd edition, and then all of a sudden, at some point, you decided to jump to 5th edition. This book might actually be a really good option, because you literally know or have books and books and books of creature lore. And I buried all my 3.5 monster books. You literally have all that lore already in you. You literally have the monster manuals from 1st edition or 2nd edition that you could build out all that information on. The ecology books from the old Dungeon magazine and Dragon magazine. And this is your update. This is your essential update to 5th edition. And you don't really need all the extra information that's in these books. In these two books. So this is weirdly a case of like you're a super experienced dungeon master and you just want the new stat blocks. You don't need any lore or really anything like that. So you just want to buy a book and it's economical. Or you're super new and you're near broke and you want to buy a book that has the most options as a game master or dungeon master, or the most options for players. And this is the book right here. But if you, as I said, want more meat on your bones, you get these two books. And that is kind of a really horrible place, it's Wizards of the Coast, to put your buyers in, because now you have me having to recommend one group this option while suggesting to other groups this is a really good option. This is not a great option. I really wish there was like a new book that was like this. A third book that had entirely new monsters in it, not reprints. Okay, which is the reason why I avoided the collector set, the collector set and the gift set, because I already had these two books plus Xanathar's Guide to Every plus Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. So why do I want to buy a new slipcase of basically 4 books I already own? I just figured, hey, I'll just buy the one book. But anyways, that's my recommendation. Now back into we're now in the review section of this one right here. I'll do those in the future in another video. In other videos. This book for new players to Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. I mean, you're limited on funds. You want more race options. This is a buy. This is like 4-star, almost 4 stars. It's like 3.75 stars. Yeah, it's kind of like in that 3.75, 4 stars territory. If you are already playing Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and have a bunch of books already, you have these 2 books. This book is like 2 stars. 2.5, maybe. Because pretty much you have almost all this stuff in here, in those books and other books. However, there's some variance in this book, and if you're a person who absolutely have all the options and you want to optimize the snot out of things, this book raises in value. However, if you are just like, you already paid for the other books, I would not buy this book. Okay? Alrighty? If you're a dungeon master, same situation, you already had those books, I probably wouldn't consider buying this book right here. There is some new options in here, and Wizards of the Coast is being really evil with just like sprinkling in a few new things and updating a few new race options and adjusting them. It's them trying to like sell you an entire book for like 10 pages of content that is new in the book. Basically like 10 or 15 pages of this 288 pages is basically all new stuff or heavily updated stuff. A lot of the all the monsters in here are pretty much still in the same territory as they were in the previous books. It's just some of them that have spellcasting components are simplified down, while others are, not even really changed at all, except for the word typically attached to their alignment. So there you go. This book right here is like a high score for people who just want to buy one book, already know the lore of various monsters, and don't want to screw around with that and save money. However, if you already spent a ton of money into Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, it's not really worth blowing more money on this unless you are willing to blow more money on something just to get a few more options. So, there you go. That's it. That's all. I'm done. Thank you very much for watching this video. I had to get back to working on my... I got players who actually follow my channel, so I had to get back to working on my campaign. The last few details of the first session, second session, third session, because you do not know how fast people are going to move through your shit. So, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing. If you don't, hit the dislike. Still consider subscribing so you can make fun of me in the comments. And have a delightful day, a nice night, a wonderful week, and a magnificent month. And see you next time.